Chris Cousins, welcome to the Soccer Queens podcast.
Thank you, Erica. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. I was very impressed with some posts that you made the other week about the college soccer recruiting process and kind of some new rules and changes that are happening in this landscape. And what I really appreciated about these posts is you were really honest with parents, and I can tell you truly want to save people time and money in the recruiting process. So we're going to get into all that today, but maybe just give a quick couple minutes on your background in soccer and working
Mhm.
in the recruiting space.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thanks for getting me on. I know you've asked me a couple of times, but I've always passed you to like Andre and Don, and obviously Reese as well. But them guys are very very knowledgeable. So, but no, it's cool. I enjoy it coming on and speaking about stuff. But yeah, in particular, like this thing you mentioned there, I've been quite, I won't say outspoken on social media recently, but I don't really post them that much. But sometimes you can kind of gauge what's going through my job at the time if I'm writing certain things. But yeah, so yeah, a bit of a backstory. So I work for a company called SI USA. I started the company in 2010. So initially it was a company that was just helping players from the UK primarily to the college system. And then fast forward the years, it's kind of opened up to everywhere, and the majority of our clients that we have are in the US now. So I'd probably say 80% of our clients are domestic females and males. And yeah, the team's pretty big now. You know quite a few of the guys. You're obviously advisory board, and like we share your stories and your articles, videos, etc. All the time within around the girls' clients. But yeah, so I mean, I played in college. So if I go back many many years ago for whatever World War II, whenever it was, but I so I'm 40 now. I played in England, played a professional club, got released, and just I kind of ended up coaching in Chicago for a summer. Sorry, I've got allergies by the way. Coaching in Chicago for the summer for MLS camps, and I got seen playing in the game and got asked, "Do you want to come down to this school, check it out? What's kind of your plans for after this?" And I was like, "Don't really know. Meant to start school in England, university in Nottingham." And then the guy goes, "Train with us. If I like you, I'll make you an offer." So at the time, as a bit of a backstory, I had no idea about the college system. I almost like try and think like that when I'm trying to help people now. I had no idea about divisions, like a lot of the people who internationally don't have a clue now. And it was actually a junior college. The junior college was on the campus of University of Illinois, Big Ten school. So pretty impressed with like the whole facilities and everything that was around. Joined the junior college, and without getting into too much detail because we'd be here all day, but I didn't perform football wise yet perform, but I didn't perform in the classroom. I kind of put academics low on my priority list, and I didn't really, even to this day, I'm like, why did I act like that? And I can't answer it. I kind of, after my first year, I got dragged in the office by my Irish coach, and he was like, "Chris, you basically got two choices. You're below the 2.0 GPA threshold, so you've got to do summer classes, or you got to go home." And I was like, right, okay. And then he's like, also, you've lost your scholarship, so your parents are gonna have to pay for it. So I had to call my parents and say, look, here's what I've done. I've not tried hard in school. Can you please pay for my summer classes? So as you can imagine, that went down like a ton of bricks. Asking for for them to pay for my summer classes. Got my scholarship back. Did I learn my lesson? Probably not. I did a little bit. I was getting recruited by many schools across the country. So I remember UC Santa Barbara with the front runners at the time. They were, well, the year I was meant to go there. They won the national title, Division One. So you can see why, like they were pretty competitive at the time. They probably won the national title because I wasn't there, ironically. That's probably a good thing for them. But I couldn't, because of my grades and stuff like that. I didn't pass. This is irony itself. I couldn't pass my English classes. I don't know why, but so this is like a weird time in my life. I just like didn't put academics first priority. Got offered chances to go to the NEIA because I didn't. couldn't get NCAA eligible, and then cut a huge long story short, went to LA Galaxy for a bit, went back home to England, continued my degree there, and finished it there. So I learned a lot of lessons there. I kind of look back and go, like, why on earth did I do that? The UC Santa Barbara coach was on my coach's backside every day calling about me. I had a full ride there if I wanted to. All I had to do was pass a couple of classes, and I just don't know why. What happened? I can't even tell you now. It's 20 years ago, but yeah. So then that's where the sort of like I mean, I'm originally from England. That's where the love of the college system and what it entails. I didn't fulfill what I should have done, but I've definitely used that kind of story when I'm speaking to parents. Like, if I'd have gone there and done really well and gone and played Division 1, full scholarship, term pro, it was all like plain sailing, no ups and downs. It wouldn't be as good of a story to tell parents so they can learn. So when I'm speaking to parents, especially in the UK and internationally, I'm like, look, you've got to take the academics serious. You're a student athlete, so you've got to do the academics. So yeah, then obviously fast forward quite a few years, people are asking about going to college. That's where the kind of business started, and then now we're kind of one of the primary companies that do what we do around the world. We obviously do the individual service. We help clubs in general. We have events. We've got our own teams and academies and stuff like that. So yeah, so I run the ship as a whole. Don Williams kind of looks after North America. But yeah, that's my story in 3-4 minutes. I apologize.
I actually didn't know your story, so I appreciate you sharing that. And now it makes a lot more sense as to why you're so passionate with your message and being so transparent with parents. Now, I do want to get into what is changing in 2024 with college soccer. So let's talk about the new roster limits. Last month, I saw on Twitter, a ton of girls soccer players follow me. I follow them. I see on Twitter all these girls saying, I am no longer playing at this school. And there's tons of these tweets, and everyone's retweeting and quoting and retweeting. And I'm just like, holy crap, this is actually happening. What is going on? So why don't you get into the roster limits and explain what has just happened in college soccer?
To start with, I think it's a good thing. The whole like telling everyone you're verbally committed and whatnot. I think for me, it's look, as a teenager, you want to kind of show off that you've got this and you've achieved this. You put a lot of work into something, and that's awesome. But going back to like college, like the roster limits. Well, just before I carry on, the way I kind of process things in my mind is a little bit more like basic and like layman's terms, because when for example Don and Andre, they've been 25-year coaches and they talk about things, and I listen, being in this industry for many years, I like things go over my head a little bit. So when I'm like kind of explaining things, it might sound very basic because that's how I work and that's I think how people understand it. But yeah, so in short, like Division 1 level is going to 28 people, 28 man women roster as of November, I think. So what does that mean? That basically means a lot of people who were committed are not committed anymore. But so when you see the girls who have been decommitted as such, like I think that's doing them a favor. I think that's not a bad thing, because if you're getting decommitted, that just basically means the college coach thinks you're a player who's 28 plus in their roster, so you're not going to get any game time. Obviously, everyone has to back themselves and think, you know what? Yeah, I might like. It's like a lot of people want to. I want to go play Division 1, and I don't care if I sit on the bench for a year or two. But you do care, but you also back yourself as well, because you think, you know what? When I get in front of the coach and I get in front of my teammates, they're going to love me, and you've got to have that element of ambition about you. But I do think this whole thing is helping players. It's definitely annoying a lot of families and players and the kind of plans people are put in place, and it's mixing things up. And there's obviously more things apart from the 28 person roster. But in short, that's just kind of making the rosters higher quality. So what does that mean? I mean, I've seen it already. I mean, it's funny. I was going to I always like think, do I screenshot this and share this? But sometimes coaches don't want you to do that. But like one today, like we are only interested in transfers and grad students. That was the one I was gonna screenshot. So all these like high school people are thinking like, oh, well, I'm I can't become a transfer or high school. I want to go play Division One. Like, and anything out of Division One is a failure. That's without knowing the actual details of everything else. And in short, in layman's terms, Division One is the best for women's soccer at the top end. In the guy side, it's the best alongside, I'd say, Division Two top end, Division One top end are pretty equal, not too far away. Um, but for me, it's not where you start; it's where you finish. I always say that, and it's you've got to look at this as like, okay, what is the ultimate goal? Is the ultimate goal to turn professional? Right. Okay. Well, you need to be playing Division One at some point in your college career. If you look at a lot of professionals who play in the MLS or WSL in England, who've been in America or played in NWSL, it's a lot. There's a lot of different leagues around the world who've played in the college system, but a lot of people don't play year one, and it's a journey. So you've got to understand, you've got to plan it. But a lot of people, it's all about egos, and they all think I've got to play Division One, Division One, Division One, and I'm a failure if I don't tell my teammates or my classmates that I've committed to university of whatever. But if you really sit down and like breathe and look at it and go, hey, okay, here's the strategy. Like when I speak to my players, I'm like, look, what is the goal? If the goal is professional, I mean, everything about soccer is about opinions, but I'll say, look, the chances are you probably won't turn professional. But if, to be honest with you, we don't really take players on unless they've got a reasonable chance of stepping to the next level. So you've got to look at that and go, and I always say to people, get a neutral opinion, whether it's a recruiting agency or it's just a coach or a teacher or a friend, whatever, get who has some knowledge about college. Get a neutral opinion about yourself and what you think, one, you can play at, two, where you're going to end up. But let's go back a step. You sit with your parents and go, look, I just want to go to a dream school and I want to play. So let's use Stanford as the example, the ultimate example that everyone seems to want to go play at. Like academically, if you're not perfect, you're not really getting even looked at. If you're not playing national team, you're not really getting looked at. So is that achievable? But is that the school you want to go study at? Yeah. Well, soccer for the varsity team, NCAA team, is not going to work. So go play for the club team. That's fine. But it's just ultimately the 28 person roster is just, I think, and people, I do get a little bit of like backlash every now and again when I mention this, is I think it will improve the quality of college soccer over the years. I think there's a lot of drastic changes. I've been trying to like process what I think them changes will be. And if you look at like Project Rudy with the football and basketball, I think it'll break away from the NCAA, which will drag soccer away and create almost super leagues of everything. Oh, well, that's another topic for another day. But I do think for the short term, you've just got to look at it and go, right, okay, college soccer is getting better. So I need to get into the college soccer system and I need to prove myself. And if I'm good enough, the cream will rise to the top. And it's unfortunate that there is a mentality. Well, is it a good mentality or a bad mentality? I'm not sure. But the mentality is I can get to the top. If I want to, I can do it. That's like me saying like at 40 years old, I want to play for Real Madrid, right? Just because I want to, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. But teenagers have, and it's sometimes fueled by parents. They have this mentality of I can get what I want, and usually that's because with clubs and stuff, it's obviously a pay-to-play system. You can get to where you want in the club system to a certain level with money. And I'm not saying that's like you bribing people. I'm just saying that's just what dictates a lot of things in the youth system. College, it's completely different. And people always think it's like I had a client. He's not actually I don't look after him, but within the company, and he messaged me just for a bit of advice. Excuse me. And he said, Chris, this is a male player. He says, look, I've got to America. I'm from England. I haven't played a minute in year one. I'm thinking of transferring. I'm better than the other defenders. And ultimately, I just read that straight away and went, he's obviously not better than the other defenders. Everyone thinks the coaches have got something against them, or sometimes there's a bit of like loyalty with players who might be seniors and like let them play and one more year and stuff like that. But ultimately, the coaches have to win, and this is not the 1990s anymore where coaches can just chill and collect a paycheck and just yeah, I'm a college soccer coach. Now it's like literally, I mean, for the most part, probably 90% of coaches are there to win and really really make progress their careers. I speak to coaches all day every day, and they're all out to win, and they don't want fillers in their rosters anymore. So that's what the 28 person roster limit is basically eliminating. They just want 28 top immediate impact players, and unfortunately that's a lot of the immediate impact players are not high school age players because the physicality, mental maturity is just not there until you're 20, 21.
Now, when you say 28, that's including goalkeepers too. So when we're
Yeah,
talking field
yeah.
players who want to get recruited, it's like 25, 26. Teams are carrying like
Well,
2 to 3 goalkeepers.
at least, yeah, at
So
least three
that
goalkeepers.
that narrows it even more. A lot of field players' parents follow this podcast, so just wanted to put that into perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I didn't really. I mean, sometimes three. Sometimes I mean, I see
Mm,
five. Sometimes
yeah,
it just yeah, it does really narrow that down. So and there's a
yeah.
lot of if you, there's not a let's say there's about 1,400 ish women's soccer teams. That's not a lot of players to be recruited every year.
Now, how does this change the future for people who are right in the middle of the recruiting process? So you already talked about the girls who are decommitting from these programs because of these roster limits and they have to go find a new school, which can be a blessing in disguise. Like you said, I love that perspective. But what does it mean for people who are in the middle of the recruiting process right now? Do they need to redo some of their lists or consider some backup plans here? What are your thoughts? Because obviously it is more competitive now.
Yeah, but it's always been competitive. It just yeah, it kind of like leads on to like I mean, we briefly touched upon it before we got recording, but that top 25% of players who are just naturally getting recruited, everyone else underneath that just needs to get more realistic. And what happens is typically people are just going after the big schools, big schools, big schools, big schools, and then it gets to a point where like and that's usually, I mean, girls and guys is completely different timelines, but it's the same sort of process. They get to a point of where the big schools are not coming. Okay, let's look further down, further down, further down. But there's a lot of time wasted there for me, and it just for me it's so obvious. And I'm like I'm watching this all day every day, and that's what led me to put a massive novel on one of our Facebook groups last week, which obviously you read and then gave me a shout. But I just think, like you say, it's a blessing in disguise for certain people. It doesn't really change any part of the recruiting process. It just, I feel like then people who are going through that process just need to understand how to do it properly and efficiently. That's the only thing. And I don't look at anything. I never. Do you know what? I used to look at people and get really annoyed at like people like having all these like massive ambitions. I'm like, oh my god, like get real, get real. I don't do that anymore. I actually look at it and go like a little bit of empathy and like it's all to do with education. Like these they just watch things. Football and basketball is kind of the main drivers here, but they look at things and go, I want my kid to go to the best. And they don't understand the intricacies of college soccer and the different levels. And like there's a lot of good JUCO girls teams, like unbelievable players. It's like Bunny Shaw, who I see play in England all the time. Like she started at JUCO. And I'm just like, there's obviously there's ones and twos everywhere, but I just think people need to really, really, really just get, it sounds really rude this, but get real. And just just bring it in and get a real strategy in place because everyone is wasting tens and tens of thousands of dollars. All these showcases, traveling around, people going to these ID camp, this ID camp. One of the main questions I hear all the time, and I know you've touched upon it in other previous podcasts, but ID camps for the most part, like unless you're being recruited to an ID camp versus just an ID camp invitee who they will make money from to fund things. That's pretty much like the two ways of looking at it. And I just think there's a real efficient way of doing things. Like quite easily, with your knowledge, with my knowledge, we could put together a simple plan and go, there we go. That's how you do it. Whether people will get, well, it's all about the ego and I can't think of the word, but it's from the start of just having that sort of understanding to be realistic of what their chances are of certain things. However, we will be wrong. Like, we can never be 100%. This is not like golf where you have a handicap, track and field where there's a time. Soccer is about opinions. Like, I might look at a player and go, no, not any good. That player might be playing in the World Cup in two. Do you know what I mean? There's you can never get it right. But for the most part, I look at things generally and go, and I'm kind of going wow 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 with this kind of answer. But I look at things and go, right, you can. We haven't got many things wrong, so that's kind of gives me an idea that I'm doing things or we as a company or whoever knows what we're talking about. So you can kind of teach people. That's why I wrote that big long sort of like novel, and I'm sure you can link that to the podcast quite easily. But if anyone wants to read it, but yeah, it's just it. In short, it doesn't change anything. It just basically means it's more difficult to play at the schools you probably thought about in your top 10 list when you first started the process. That's the short answer.
I'm going to link this post in the caption so everyone can read it. And I'm actually going to read a little excerpt here in just a minute. But I think
Right.
there's a lot of people listening to this right now. A lot of parents listen to this podcast and they're in the middle of the recruiting process. And there are not these top schools knocking on their door yet, or a coach has not come up to their kid after an ID camp and said, "Hey, we want you." They're just kind of like, we're not really getting any feels from these top schools. So you talk about these types of people in the post and you give them solutions on what they can do. So I do want to read how you kicked off the post. It's really, really good. So you say, if you are having to find out how to go through the college soccer recruiting process, this honestly means your kid is not in the top 25 to 30% of players available out there. Those players are typically organically recruited. You know, the best players at the best levels, the players who are just known and who can almost sit back and wait for coaches to come to them. Coaches know of all the top players in the country from sophomore, junior year, if not earlier. The best teams go after the best players. Even some of the not great teams do and try to shoot their shot. This may sound obvious, but why am I telling you this? Quite simply because I see people talking about schools that will honestly be never interested in them as freshmen. Now, do players from average levels and in the middle of the pack get recruited by top schools? Yes, but honestly, it's hardly ever. So, these types of players who have to get real, like you said, who are in the middle of the pack and not the best, what are some solutions for them so they can kind of save some stress, time, and money in this process?
Well, it depends on what the goal is. If the goal is to play college soccer, there's obviously things that I've got to give. You can't have the best of everything, unfortunately. For the most part, if you actually think about anybody you know who is a very very good, let's say national team level player, are they like frantically like fretting about the college recruiting process? They're not, because they literally just like sit there and people are contacting them all the time, inviting this. They just don't have to do anything. Like, they don't need recruiting agencies. They don't need any help. They don't need to go to random showcases, random ID camps, because they are, like I said before, organically getting recruited because they're the best of the best. The scouting has been done by the system.
And
Now,
Chris, I'll say those types of players, the only thing they're stressed about is, what school do I pick? I have so many options.
yeah,
USC, Stanford, UNC, Notre Dame, Florida State. Oh my gosh, where
yeah,
do I go? That's their stress. And if
yeah, you can
that's
almost
not
like,
your stress, then you know you're not in the best of the best.
yeah, and that there is just like, I mean, if you brought two girls in and you said, look, you bring one of them girls there, and just like a regular, I won't call them normal girls, but just everyone outside that top bracket. Like, there's nothing wrong being outside the top bracket. Like, it's just who you are. You've got to really like love yourself and just be who you are and just kind of make the most out of it. But you put them side by side. That girl there, she's looking at all the packets. She's got t-shirts been sent, and like, yeah, who do I choose? I go, well, I live in Florida or California or what? Do you know what I mean? It's like that's that one, but there's very few of them. But the majority of people are the other side. and they're trying to frantically, and the parents are taking charge of things, and parents get a lot of flack, sorry, from people saying like, oh, like don't do things on behalf of your kid. I used to be one of them. I'm like, let the kid decide, like, and let them tweet themselves, let them message the coach themselves. I do think, yeah, there's an element you have to do that, but you have to be protective over that. You've got to guide them. What they don't know, they don't know. So you're an adult. I know with my kids, I'll be looking at them going, I'll be trying to guide them, but you have to give them an element of freedom as well. But ultimately, like I said, like I started the conversation, you've got to find out what your level is at, right? Okay, you got a plan there as such, because people are telling you this is what you're ultimately trying to achieve. Okay, parents on board, you're on board. What do you do next? Okay, is it you want to go to the dream school? If you want to go to the dream school, you can't play. You've got to play club soccer maximum. That's it. If it's not, if you want to play college soccer, if you want to play college soccer, you've got to then go. Okay, well, let's look at the JUCO sort of route. Let's look at Division 3, Division 2, NAIA. It just, like you say, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. What's the ultimate plan? There's about 10,000 different answers here for this, but if I'm not in that top bracket there and I'm a player who wants to play in college, what do I do here? Okay, right, I've got the realist. So people have told me this is the levels I can play at. Right, that's kind of narrowed my sort of search down. Am I slightly frustrated and disappointed that I'm not good enough for that? Yeah, but that's saving me a lot of time by just not chasing that, which is a shame, but it is what it is. So, okay, does that school there? Okay, which sort of area do I want to live in? What sort of major do I want to do? Like financials, like what sort of scholarships do I need? You're kind of narrowing things down bit by bit by bit. And let's say, for example, you want to look at Florida, like one of the three main places that international players say to us, I want to live in Florida, California, New York. And that's just because all they know about America, really, pretty much. And Florida, I'm like, yeah, that's fine, Florida, but there's not many schools there, really. I mean, there's not many JUCOs, division. Do you know what I mean? All the divisions, basically. And you've got to start narrowing things down. Okay, you've got like a real small list now. Is this list realistic? Yes, it should be realistic because you've listened to the advice of what other people have said, and you've looked at your personal sort of goals, and then that's when you start. I mean, email's the only tool anyone's got. I'm a huge. I hate the fact. I mean, I feel bad for coaches. Like I've got a lot of good friends who are college coaches, and they're just like the professional emailers. That's all they are, especially the assistant coaches. They just email. They're getting and the advice from everyone is just to email coaches, and I hate that. But I'm about to say the same thing because that's the only way you can do it is to email them. But it's not about trying to be sly and try to get your sort of like your profile seen. It's just about okay, this is let's say for example, I'm a girl. I've seen this school in these five particular schools in these five areas. I'm going to email the coaches. I'm not a fan of like, and coaches think like this as well. Like, oh, I watched your game and I thought you defensively played well, and I just like coaches know people are telling them to like. I mean, there's two sides of that. Like, yeah, it is like a personalized email, but two is just like kind of almost cut to the chase a little bit. Like, you can be personalized, but you don't have to get too in depth. The coaches know you've been told to kind of say something and catch their attention, but the subject line is huge. If you've got like a lot of people, I see some of the emails like striker 2025, and like, well, okay, that you're not going to get looked at. But if you need to put in the subject your sort of core black and white details, so like striker, ECNL level, 3.5 GPA, high budget, available for fall 2025, gives you everything in a subject line. If a coach is wanting a striker with a decent GPA, with a decent budget for fall 2025, they're going to open it. And if they're not going to open it, it's because they don't need it. So it's just like, yeah, email's the only way to do it. Obviously, there is ID camps, and if you want to shoot your shot and get to an ID camp and hopefully get seen and impressed, that does happen. But obviously, that's a financial commitment, especially if it's not anywhere near where you live. Just I think that's probably the only advice I've got to keep it simple. Just email coaches and get to ID camps. But then the flip side of that, I've just told people I hate people who email coaches, and ID camps can be a waste of money. But you've got no other choices really if you're doing this by yourself.
I like what you said earlier in the conversation too, that if you don't go to one of these top schools, don't think of it as a failure. There are so many amazing college programs out there. I had Mark Leonard on, he's a JUCO coach and they're building and he has a great team culture. I mean, there's so many great JUCO programs too, and you can always use it as a platform to maybe transfer or maybe you end up staying there and becoming an All-American. So, I mean, I just don't want people to think it's a failure if they don't go to Florida State or if they don't go to Stanford. It's just
How do you do
crazy
that? How
now.
do you do that? How would you? I mean, it's you're obviously talking to me, but there's unless we change, I don't know how we can change it for people not to want the best and be happy with the rest. How do we do that? I don't know.
Well, I had this conversation with Don Williams. We did a whole episode on D1 or bust. And
Yeah,
it
I listened
always
to that.
comes down to, well, what type of D1 are you talking about? Are you talking about a top 25 or are you talking about the 200th best D1 team? A lot of girls will make this blanket statement, I want to play D1, but then they're like not even considering a number one ranked D2 or D3 program, which is probably better than that 300th best D1 team. So it depends what you're talking about with D1.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, yeah, like for example, like our showcase in England we've got in December. Like, we've got the top. Well, we've got the bottom two in terms of like current wins and etc. in Division One. The bottom two at the minute they're coming to our showcase, but also the three out of the top five at Division Two are coming as well. But then people look at that and go, "Oh, the Division Ones." But with all respect to them, like the other three from the Division Two are much better teams. So
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, it depends on what Division One you're talking about.
I'll
It's
give an
hard.
example. So when I was getting recruited, I was deciding between University of Maryland, which is in they were in the ACC at that time, and then Johns Hopkins University, University of Wisconsin, George Washington University. So all those schools are D1 except for Johns Hopkins. I
Mhm.
ended up choosing Johns Hopkins, a Division III program. But when I was doing my research and looking at the records of University of Maryland at that time, they weren't really a good team. And I wanted to be on a winning team and also a winning team where I can make an impact. So that's just kind of an example where there is
That's unique.
also what?
That's a unique decision,
Well,
don't
people
you
thought I
think?
was crazy at the time. And
There we
if I
go.
would have made this decision today, people would have thought I was even crazier.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a unique, whether it was 10, 15, whatever. Now it doesn't matter how many years
Yeah.
ago.
Well, it's
That's a
like
very
you
unique
turned
answer.
down the ACC. You turned down playing in that.
Yeah.
And but that didn't attract me in a college program. And I guess it really depends on who you are because some people are okay with going to an ACC or Big 10 school, just being on the roster and going to all the big football games.
Yeah.
But
I
that's
know.
not what I wanted, and you just have to know yourself. I am grateful for what I did for myself, and I want girls to understand that is another option because there's great levels in D2 and D3 and sometimes better than a lot of D1 programs.
I'll tell you the one sort of like comment when I mentioned this, what I'm going to mention in a second. I do get a lot of like people sending me not very nice DMs, and I'm not here to like try and create or at the time try and create people to send nasty sort of messages. But I do say to people all the time, you're not going to turn professional. That girls and guys, like, you're not turning professional. Like, obviously there's ones and twos, but like for 99.9% of people, you're not turning professional. So like, stop thinking of this as like, I need to play at top levels to get, because that is the, you kind of want to, but there's going to be an end point very, very soon. So like, yeah, go play in the, go, well, not play in the ACC, go to the ACC, sit on the bench for a year, 2 years, then transfer. I mean, without looking at stats, and I'm kind of not making these up as such, but like I always have a check of like our American players, international players, and decisions that have been made, and a lot of the Americans, domestic players, will on the first of all D1 only. Internationals don't really understand it, so you can mold the internationals a lot better because they kind of will listen to you because they haven't got a clue about how it all works. So internationally, I think it's easier to get recruited than it is as a domestic player. which is crazy. But if you're using a recruiting agency, sorry. But the domestic kids are a bit more, they've got certain sort of things that they want to do, but they just all want to turn professional, girls and guys. I know in particular this is about girls, but with girls, if they turn professional, you're not going to make enough money to retire off. So you've always got to look back and go, right, this next 4 years is a massive part of my life. I've got to really enjoy it. And people don't really talk about that. They're just like, right, go try and play Division One. But really, it's just about that 4 years is really, really, really enjoying it. Obviously, ticking off the academic side, massively important. Making sure you get the right degree for what you want to do because you're not turning professional. So, I mean, obviously there'll be people who will, but like I say, we can say generally you're not. And like on the same on the guy side, but yeah, girls is obviously there's less money involved. So just look at it like that, right? Why do I want to go play the best of the best? It's just almost like an ego thing. I need to get into a team and a level it's going to test me. Yeah, definitely. You don't want to drop down in levels. But in college, I don't think there is many schools where you do drop down a level. Don't get me wrong. There's quite a few Division threes and even Division twos and Division one. All divisions have got good and bad teams. All of them have got really, really bad teams. And I would never name names because obviously that's unfair. But every division has really bad teams. I'm talking you are dropping down from your level of your club. But that's because the coach got lazy or recruiting or whatever. But for the most part, 95% of teams in every single division, that's junior college included, are much better than your club teams. So you're stepping up. And then obviously not to go down the JUCO route, and that's a conversation which take a while, but junior college, like you can only be there 2 years. So there's no 22, 23, 24-year-olds on the team. So you've got more chance to play straight away. So why not play straight away and transfer? And yeah, just, like I used Bunny Shaw as the example. She played junior college, played Division One. Now is the English WSL Player of the Year. And like I say, it's really easy to pick these ones and twos, but it just unfortunately because we're dealing with a generalized sort of argument and population, we can't give straight answers to anyone. But for me, like just strategize, get real, and just stop wasting time.
Would you say that there is a path to pro other than D1? Because I have seen some girls from top 25 D3 programs play pro in Iceland or Italy or Spain and get these amazing opportunities. So I don't think enough people are talking about that either.
It's funny that they say Iceland because I just saw somebody today who
Yeah,
got.
Brooklyn Woodward from Johns Hopkins University.
Oh, is it maybe you shared it? I saw
Yeah.
something for Iceland today. Yeah, there we go. That's why.
Yeah, she's been on the podcast and she was talking about her pro experience in Iceland, and she's an amazing player.
Oh, there we go. That's why maybe you said it subconsciously. I was like, but yeah, well, look, yeah, there's for example, international players. A lot of them can't go. There's obviously different sort of rules, and internationals don't have a lot of their own like budgets, and that's why many of them go to Division Two, NAIA. And Americans won't go to them levels. That's why it's full of foreign players, and then they become good players and then go play abroad. I mean, I use an example. Molly Sharp, one of our players from SIUSA, she played at Barry in Florida. She did 4 years there. And now she's playing in WSL with Crystal Palace women. So yeah, the answer is yes, and you can play at any division, and it's just how you progress. I will say this: for the most part, as an American, you want to be playing in the biggest limelight, which is the top end of Division One. But it doesn't mean if you're not good enough, you won't play professional. I mean, there's lots of girls. I'm in Spain, and the Malaga City Academy down the road, and there's a lot of Americans on that team there, and a lot of players who've gone on to professional contracts. But what's a professional player? A professional player is somebody who's paid money, but a lot of these professional leagues, it's not. You can't live off that money. You definitely can't retire off that money. So for me, it's just about you. I mean, I don't play anymore. I massively miss it. I wish I could go back in time just to play more football, soccer. But it's all about just squeezing as much out of your own talent as possible, whether that's to get scholarships for education or just professionally to earn some money and experience new places. It's all about that, and that's what the whole journey should be about. And just try and get to as high a level as possible. Just get to your ceiling. And if you don't try your best, like with me, well, I got to my certain ceilings, but academically, I missed out on things that could have opened up a lot more doors, because I didn't put the effort in, and that's my fault. And people need to put effort in to get to their end goal.
Well, Chris, this has been a great discussion, and I think a lot of people got some value from it and gave some really good advice on just how to navigate this new recruiting landscape and like you say get real with themselves and just really consider what's the end goal and what am I going to do to get there and is it doable for me and where I'm at. So I will link your Twitter in the caption below, as well as that dissertation that you wrote for people who are interested in reading.
Dissertation.
Trust me, it is about a 10-minute read, but it is so worth it. So please check it out, and I will see everyone on the next episode.